Hey, Stephanie. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Daryl. Hi, Sharon. Good to see everybody. This is great. Thank you for coming. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I am attempting, this is being recorded, so I'm hoping I can figure out how to get this on my YouTube channel when we're done. So if someone missed it, they can come back and watch it. We're going to go ahead and get started. And if you are just joining, I was letting everybody know that feel free to put any questions you might have in the chat. And when I'm done with the presentation, I'll start with the questions with those, and I'll unmute everybody so we can talk a little bit. All right. So I'm going to share my screen here, my handy dandy PowerPoint. And we are talking, all right, there we go, about hazardous waters, paddler safety, identifying and managing risks. All right, now I know why there's usually 2 people on Zoom meetings, because there's someone who's letting people in. All right, sorry about that. So a little bit about me. I'm Kathy. I own and operate Delta Kayak Adventures. Been doing that since 2012. We're based at the Antioch Marina, but we do tours and trips all over the Delta. And in past years, we've gone further places like Tomales Bay and Elkhorn Slough, and we're hoping to be able to add those trips again later this year. I'm also an American Canoe Association certified coastal kayak instructor. If you're not a member of the American Canoe Association, I suggest you take a look at that. They're a great organization that really supports the paddling community. They look out for like legislation and stuff that may affect our rights to access to water. They have great resources for education if you're looking for an instructor in your area. Great organization to belong to. I'm also a track kayak pilot and ambassador. If you haven't heard of track, they're a high performance sea kayak that you can literally take anywhere in the world with you. They go on airplanes, trains, and automobiles very easily. Basically the size of a golf bag, but they're a high-end carbon fiber and military grade aluminum frame, skin on frame kayak. They're really neat. I suggest checking out. You can check out their website. And if you want to book a test paddle, you can contact Track and they'll hook you up with me. We're going to be doing a camp next year I'm really looking forward to in October with track owners or people interested in becoming a track owner. So look for that next year. And then personally, I've been paddling for a little over 10 years. I've always been a water person, whether it's been sailing or water skiing or power boating. I love the water, and there's really no other place I'd rather be. So this is why we're here. This past year, the paddle sports industry, tons of people buying kayaks and paddle boards, and that is so great. And but it's really important. I don't think people realize you want to plan for your outing. These statistics here are from the 2019 Coast Guard boating accident statistics. So we'll start here. Where cause of death was known, 79% of fatal boating accident victims drowned. Of those drowning victims, 86% were not wearing a life jacket. It is so important. I can't stress enough. Please wear your PFD. They make so many different kinds. You can find one that's comfortable. You don't even know you have it on. That's something I really, really believe in. Where instruction was known, 70% of deaths occurred on boats where the operator did not receive boating safety instruction. If you're new to kayaking or paddleboarding, I suggest at least taking an intro class. You will be very happy to at least get the basics down. basic strokes. It makes it so much more enjoyable and helps you avoid developing bad habits. So where data was known, the vessel types with the highest percentage of deaths were motorboats. Kayaks were 14%, personal watercraft 8%, but if you include all types of paddlecraft, it rises to 20%. In 2019, kayaking and canoeing ranked 4th in vessel type with the top casualties. Out of reported cases, there were 246 casualties and 125 deaths. 78% of paddle casualties or injuries were due to hypothermia, and we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. The number one reason for kayak accidents is you, specifically operator inexperience, which is defined as lack of a practical experience or knowledge in operating a vessel, or more particularly, the vessel involved in the accident. So here's an example. This is a real tragic accident that happened in 2018 on Lake Superior. And I'm just using this as an example. They had the wrong equipment. This was a family of 5, 2 adults, 3 children, and they had decided, this was Lake Superior, they decided to paddle to an island offshore, just offshore. But what happened is that they overloaded the kayak. They had a kayak that was rated for about 500 pounds, and with the 2 adults and the 3 kids, they were pretty close to 500 pounds, and that wasn't even including any gear. They were not dressed for the water temperature, and when they did capsize, they did not stay with the kayak. So unfortunately, one of the father and the 3 children, they passed away. The mom did survive, and it's just a horrible accident that could have been avoided. So how do you avoid becoming a headline? Well, do that with proper preparation. So we're going to talk a little bit about cold water, moving water, and ship and boat traffic. So first, cold water is defined as 70 degrees or less. So you want to keep that in mind. So probably a good chunk of the year here, at least in the Delta, the river temperature is going to be under 70 degrees. You want to dress for immersion or the water temperature, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If you do capsize, never let go of the boat. If for some reason you do lose your boat or your paddleboard, you want to get in the help position, which is basically curling up and keeping those internal organs as warm as possible. If you're with a group or maybe you're in a tandem and you capsize, again, try your best to hold on to your kayak and then huddle together. That will help keep you warm if you cannot get back into your boat. Some ways to keep warm if you do end up in the water: you can dress for immersion or the water temperature. And these are the different, this is like a whole nother presentation on the different types of paddle wear. But just to give you an idea, there's dry suits. That's going to be your like top of the line if you're going to be paddling year round. And I mean, it's definitely, they're very expensive, but well worth the investment. You have a wetsuit. They're very economical. And if you do get a wetsuit, you want to get one like this pictured here. It's called a Farmer John or Farmer Jane, where there's no sleeves. And so that gives you plenty of movement for your arms and shoulders. You want at least a 2 millimeter, but 3 millimeter is best. You can also do a dry pants or dry top combo. Those work well, but you want to keep in mind that if you do go in and if you haven't put them together properly, you can have leakage, which will kind of defeat the purpose because you will get wet. And then you want to, especially if you're wearing a dry suit or the dry pants, dry top combo, you can layer. And even if you don't use any of that stuff, you can still use synthetic layers. Whenever you paddle, never wear cotton, especially in cold water. It doesn't dry. So wool or any kind of polyester, spandex kind of blend, you can put together and layer. And you can always bring a spare set of clothes. Like if you can't afford to invest in these items, at least dress in synthetic layers and bring a dry bag with a spare set of clothes in case you do go in the water. You can get to shore and get into some dry clothes quickly. So we have what's called the cold water survival principle, which is called 1-10-1 principle. So basically what happens when you enter cold water, you have an automatic reaction. It's just a gasp for cold air. You have about a minute to control your breathing before you start hyperventilating. So what I like to tell people, if you fall in, smile. Just smile. Just try to smile and relax. Think about your breathing. Get yourself calmed down. Once you get your breathing under control, then you have about 10 minutes of meaningful movement to get back in your boat. You'd be surprised. This has happened to me. A warm, sunny day, but it was February. The water temperature was about 45 degrees, and I went in, and it was less than 10 minutes before I could not use my hands. I knew what I wanted to do with my hands, but they wouldn't do what I wanted them to. So it's really important to get back in that boat or back on that board as quickly as you can. You have about an hour before hypothermia, before you can pass out from hypothermia and get in the first stages. So then the next one, let's see here, moving water. So all these principles can be applied pretty much anywhere you paddle. I'm kind of focusing on the delta. These are, especially these submerged items, are things that you'll encounter here. So ways to prepare. Know the waters you're going to be paddling. You can use local knowledge, ask people who paddle there regularly, and do some research online. There's all kinds of resources. I actually write a blog called Kayaking the California Delta. It has lots of trips on there, and that can give you a little bit of idea of what to expect when you go to a particular location. Definitely do some research before you go somewhere new. Get as much information as you can. When you do get on the water, you want to watch for submerged hazards like pilings, old ships or abandoned vessels, rebar, and rocks. The tides, this area is affected by tides, and generally speaking, there's about a 4-foot difference every day. And so you may be on the water one day and you'll see the pilings. Then you go out the next week and it's a higher tide and those pilings are covered. So you just want to be aware that those items may be there. So as you're paddling close to shore, keep an eye out for hazards such as that. Another thing you want to be aware of, you don't have to worry about it here on the Delta, but if you think of paddling any rivers, low head dams, very dangerous, always portage, which means take your boat out and walk around. Do not go over any low head dams. You'll find those on rivers like the Russian River and the Yuba River. All right, vessel traffic. So out here on the Delta, especially on the San Joaquin River, you may see ships passing. They're also out on the Sacramento River. Stockton is actually the one of the busiest inland ports in the country. Over 300 ships head to Stockton each year. So you want to stay out of the shipping lanes as much as possible. If you're going to cross the river, there's some great spots to go to, you want to make sure, look both ways. And if you see a ship, wait for it to pass. They go a lot faster than they look. And you may be able to beat it across the river, but what happens if you capsize? There's no way that ship's going to stop. They can't stop. So they move a lot faster than they look. You can also use an app such as Vessel Finder to see if there's ships in your area. All ships are equipped with AIS, which is kind of like, basically it's GPS for ships, and you can follow them like if you've ever followed like the airplanes. It's very similar, so you can see what ships are in the area and see how fast they're going, or maybe they're parked. But basically, use your eyes, and if you see any, just wait for them to pass. You want to stay close to the shoreline. As far as like other boating traffic, when you're in a smaller channel, you want to stay on one side or the other. Don't paddle in the middle of a slough or a channel, because if you come across a bend, you'll see there's a lot of bass boats in this area, and they do 60, 70 miles an hour. And if they come around a bend and you're in the middle of the channel, there's no way they're going to stop and be able to avoid hitting you. So stay on one side or the other. When you're crossing a river or the channel and you're with a group, stay with that group. Cross as a group. Stay nice and close, nice and tight. I like to say, makes you a lot more visible to other vessels in the area. If you're by yourself or even as a group, paddle with a higher angle stroke. Get that paddle up in the air and kind of try to reflect the light so it hits the vessels, gets their attention. Just you want to try to make yourself as visible as possible. Another thing you can do is wear high visibility PFDs, bright colors. That helps. When paddling in low light conditions, you want to carry a white light with you. Do not paddle with it on. One, it'll ruin your night vision, but it also can disorient other vessels. So you only want to use that white light if you see an oncoming vessel. You want to use it to signal them. Let them know where you are. So there's ways. So how do we put this all together and figure out, okay, is it safe for me to go out? Well, you can do this risk assessment. And it just kind of, you can do this in your head or, just write this down and just kind of, you want to do this rating system. You want to rate 1 to 10, 10 being the highest risk. So first of all, if you're going out with a group, is there a supervision? Is there a trip leader? How much experience do they have? If there really isn't, then you're going to rank that as at a higher number. Planning. Have you planned for the trip? What about, or if as the leader, how much planning have they done? Just kind of try to put a number on these things. Look at the team, look at the paddlers. What's everyone's experience level? Is everyone like avid paddlers? Do they go out every week? Or do they go out once or twice a year? What about their fitness level? Are they, you don't have to be, a pro paddler, but are they physically active, hiking, whatever, working out at the gym? What's their fitness level? And then you want to look at the environment, right? The 4 W's. You got wind, water, waves, and weather. Think about what you're going to encounter. What are the tides doing? And then your equipment. Is your equipment in good condition? Do you have all of your equipment? If you're paddling a sea kayak or sit inside, do you have your bilge pump and paddle float? Are your drain plugs closed tight? Make sure there's no water inside your boat. And then what's the event complexity? Is the plan for the day, are you going to paddle 10 miles? Or are you going to you're just going to hang out and just kind of float, and maybe do a mile or two, if that, so kind of rate that, and you can do that in your head. And this is basically how you can kind of really fine tune that and define what kind of risk you're taking there. So then there's a way to prevent, right? Float plan. I don't know if you guys have heard of a float plan. Basically, it's letting someone else know where you're going, when you're going to be back. You want to, I actually have a blank one. If anyone's interested, shoot me an email and I will send you the ones I have. And what I suggest is you can write everything down and you can leave it on the dashboard of your car, especially if you go out alone. This is really important if you're going out by yourself. But even if you're going out with a group, it's a good idea. Let people know where you're going. And it's important to stick with that plan as much as possible. I mean, if the wind comes up and you're going to change, hopefully, you're going to head back early. But if you say you're going to go, you're paddling from Antioch to Pittsburgh, don't go to Big Break, at the last minute and not tell anybody. So definitely let people know where you're going. Again, your personal flotation device, that PFD, that life jacket, is so very important. Find one that fits you well and you're really comfortable with. Make sure you have that proper equipment for the conditions. There's so many different types of kayaks out there. I'm actually hoping to do another presentation in a couple weeks on what to know before you buy a kayak. Because you really kind of want to think about the type of paddling you want to do. And so you invest in the proper gear. And then communication. You should have at least 2 forms of communication with you on the water. That can be a cell phone and a whistle. And by the way, a whistle is required by law to have on your person on any human-powered watercraft. You can use a VHF radio and a cell phone. VHF, they have a emergency for Coast Guard Channel 16. But you can use that also to communicate with other boats if they have VHF, which a lot of them will on at least in this area. And then the last thing is know your limits. You have to, only you know how good you feel and what your fitness level is and your experience and your comfort. It's okay, you know, to plan on going to a paddle and you get there and you see the conditions and you're like, I don't think so. It's okay to say no, that I'm not going to do it today. So don't be afraid to save it for another time. And then again, if you have any other questions, you know, we do private and group instruction classes, clinics, rescue clinics, navigation and trip planning, the guided tours. We do youth camps and classes, and we have kayak, canoe, and sup rentals. All right, so I don't know if you have any questions. I'm going to try to figure out how to, okay, I'm going to stop that. And I'm going to unmute. Okay, well, maybe you guys can unmute yourself because it doesn't look like I have a button here to unmute you. So, awesome. Okay. So, a couple questions here. Okay, so for larger paddlers, depends again on the type of kayaking you want. If you're thinking about fishing, you want something wider and more stable. If you're looking more at touring, then you want to look at larger sea kayaks like the Boreal Storm. There's bigger boats out there. Most manufacturers have a rating. So if you look at their website, and it'll tell you the weight capacity. So you want something, you want to make sure that you leave room for your gear, right? So, you know, the kayak may be rated for 325 pounds, but make sure that you have enough room to add gear. All right, and the Ship Finder app, there's one that's called Ship Finder, and then there's another one that's called Vessel Assist. And I typically use Vessel Assist is the one that I use the most often. Okay, that's a good one. How to assess a beginner. So, well, one is hopefully people be honest and, you know, as far as what their skill level is or what their experience level is. And so I think the best thing is talking and asking questions. And you can typically, if you're more experienced, you'll know more kayaking terms, I'll say, right? And you can kind of throw things out there and ask questions and see, if they're not responding with, the correct terms, or, you kind of feel like they're not as informed as maybe they're saying they are. Change your plan as far as, stick to something that may be a lower level for that paddler, and get an idea. And once you get them on the water, you're going to be able to tell right away, how much experience they have. All right. Any other questions? I finished early. So we got 10 minutes before I think Zoom cuts us off. So if there's any other questions.
Kathy.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi. When you fell in the water in February and you couldn't use your hands, did you have a dry suit on? Did you have a wet suit on?
So have you heard of hydro skins? So Hyper Skins is they're made by NRS, and I only had the pants on. It was like 70 degrees out, and I had started to put the rest of my neoprene on, but I was like, oh, it's really nice out. I'm not going to do that. So I didn't. I just wore a rash guard and another like synthetic shirt. And it was a class, and we were practicing edging, and I capsized. And I mean, I wasn't in the water for long, and I think that's what surprised me most was how difficult it was to use my hands to get back on my kayak. And of course, I was totally embarrassed, and I'm fine, and I kept paddling. And that's the best thing to do too, is, if you get wet, you start moving, get that body warmed up. But by the end of the class, it was painful. Every bone in my body ached, and I was like just physically just drained. Just the energy was just gone.
So what time of year does the water warm up to the point where you're not going to get hypothermia if you fall in?
Yeah, May is probably a good time. Once we start getting that warmer weather, like right now, the river's at 54 degrees, and it's going to start. Although today, I don't know, it's freezing today, but but it should start warming up a little bit each day. And but typically May is a good time. And and think too, everybody's body type is different too, so it may affect someone quicker than someone else. So, and you kind of know your own tolerance for cold water. Any other questions out there? Good place to find water temperature. There are gauges throughout the river. Let me see if I can get it to you real quick here. Let's see here. If you Google water temperatures, San Joaquin River, it'll give you literally the entire like 300 miles. Oh wow, it says I got a gift here. Hang on a second. Okay, don't know what that was. Okay.
It's free time. You're unlimited now.
I get free. Oh, is that just for today, or
it's usually for first time users, and then if you do it too many times, they'll literally cut you off mid-sentence at your.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of. That's what I was thinking they were going to do. Okay, well that's good to know. But yeah, there's if you Google water temperature, San Joaquin River, it's going to give you the whole length of the river. But the one that's closest to us, I use westernbass.com. It's a fishing website. And Collinsville is probably closest to us. You could use Collinsville or Frank's Tract. So to give you an idea right now, it's saying Frank's Tract is 53 degrees. So, and actually Collinsville is 54. So those temperatures should start warming up pretty soon. Well, I'll give it another month at least, but they'll warm up. What else we got?
Kathy, for anybody who wants to track temperature when they're paddling, this weekend at Canacopia, one of the instructors showed us that he went to a pet store and got one of those adhesive aquarium thermometers.
I saw that.
And he keeps it stuck on his paddle. I thought that was a great idea.
That really is. Yeah, if you're interested, it's just like a little adhesive. It's for aquariums, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it just sticks on. You can stick it on the end of your paddle, and you want to know how cold the water is, you can just dip your paddle in there and find out right away. So what is considered unsafe winds? So that really varies with your experience. Typically for the beginner, I would stay out of the water anything over 10 miles an hour. But one thing you want to consider is, especially in our area, is the direction of the current or the tide and the direction of the wind. What happens is, even with 10 miles an hour, if you have a 10-mile west wind going against the current that's heading east, you're going to get waves. And there's something that's called fetch, which is the distance the wind travels across the water. So if you're in an area like Broad Slough, which is right outside the Antioch Marina, there's big open water. The wind has a long way to travel. By the time it gets to the Antioch Marina, we can get 3 to 5 foot swells with, 12 or 14 mile an hour winds. So it really depends on the direction of the wind and the current. But generally speaking, if you're a beginner, 10 miles an hour, that I wouldn't go out above that. Some beginning paddling areas. Well, if timed right and the conditions are good, the Antioch Marina to the Dow Wetlands Preserve is a great trip. The Dow Wetlands, it's about a 600-acre preserve, and there's lots of little sloughs in there, and it's really protected from the wind. The only downside is that you do have to get on the river it's a little under half a mile. But again, depending on what direction the wind is coming from, you can be protected on your way there. Another good spot, and these areas still, it all depends on what the wind's doing. Big Break is another good area. It's very shallow water, so they can get some steep waves if the wind is blowing really good. Contra Loma, there's a lot of East Bay Park lakes, Lake Del Val, Contra Loma, San Pablo Reservoir are some nice ones. And the only thing with those places is they have an inspection for aquatic invasive species. So you want to make sure that your boat is absolutely dry. I mean, there cannot be one drop of water in it, or they will not let you on the water. And same with your equipment. You can't have a wet PFD or any gear at all that's wet. So you want to make sure it's nice and clean and dry, and then go there. And they'll inspect it. And I think I want to say it's $3 or $4 to inspect, and I think they charge another $3 or $4 to launch your kayak or your board. Some places, and I think this is changing, but for paddle boarders, for some reason, some places don't let paddle boarders on the water. And I'm just guessing, it's because most of these waters are reservoirs and they don't want people having contact with the water. And so I'm thinking that they're thinking that paddle boarders have higher chances of being in the water. So check with the park before you go there. But yeah, there's lots of lakes, protected lakes in the area. How do you get rated to know your abilities? Good question. Well, if you become a member of the American Canoe Association, then you can do what's called an assessment. And I can do that up to a level 2 at this point. And if you want to go further, I will hopefully be a level 3 by the end of this year. But there's different assessments, and actually, if you go to the American Canoe Association website, there's if you look at their educational resources, you can download their assessment, or if anybody wants to contact me, I can send it to you. And basically, it lists everything that you need to be able to do at a certain level in order to be certified at a certain level. And that doesn't necessarily mean to become a certified instructor. That's a whole different thing. But to be rated and assessed at what level you are, and you don't have to, be officially assessed, but you can assess yourself just by using those resources at the American Canoe Association. Kayaking clubs. Well, we just started a new group called Delta Paddlers. It's on Facebook, and I'm really excited for that. I've been wanting to do that for a while, and Stephanie, some of you may know Stephanie, she's come on board to help me moderate the group. And so we're hoping to get some social paddles out there, and you guys are welcome to create your own paddles amongst each other until we get that official one set up. But yeah, definitely network and get together. That's the whole idea. Is I really want people to connect and be able to find someone to go paddling with. There's also Bay Area Sea Kayakers, Basque.org. If you're interested in touring or sea kayaking, they're an amazing club. They're based in San Francisco, but there's literally people all over the world that belong to this group. And they organize new member paddles each month. You do have to be a member. It's like $30 or $40 a year to join. But they have a meeting every month, and they have great speakers. And you can be involved as much as you want with the club. It's all made up of volunteers, and they put on, I know COVID canceled it last year, but they do a skills clinic every year, which is top notch. And as far as instruction, because you have volunteer instructors going out, volunteering their time, but it's an intense clinic where it's 6 weeks and you have to be committed. It's every weekend for at least 6 weeks. And I want to say there's a couple weekdays in there for classes, but you really learn a lot. And again, that's Basque.org. For those paddleboarders out there, there's a fairly new one called the Dog Patch Paddle Club. They're not just for suppers, but I want to say the majority of them are paddleboarders. And they're based, there's a new park in San Francisco called Crane Cove. Beautiful park. I have yet to be there, but I've been on some calls with the San Francisco Bay Water Trail. And there's also a thing called Bay Confidential. It's they've been doing some programs about the Bay Trail, and they did a nice program and overview of Crane Cove Park. And it's got a beach and a walkway. It's they built, they weren't, I don't think it was the Liberty ships. I can't remember the types of ships they built there during World War II. But it's a really neat park with a beach, and they've got a Moby mat so through the sand, so it's easy for wheels to get your boat to the water, and paddleboards are super easy to get to the water. But it's fairly protected. I would check them out. They're on Facebook, Dog Patch Paddle Club. Then there's, if you're in the South Bay at all, Kayakers Alliance is another club I would check out. And I can think of right now. Summer camp for the kids. Yes, I'm working on that right now. For sure, I know I'm doing one mid-July, and I'm going to do one. I want to do one in June, and I'm thinking it's going to be the end of June, and then I might do one more at the end of July. So I'm just trying to gather some help before I commit. So, but yes, for sure. There's already one through the Antioch Recreation Department. You're welcome to sign up through them, but I'll be doing my own. I mean, it's with me, but through them. I'll be doing my own. I'm going to get one hopefully the end of June, and then add an additional one for July. So that would be awesome to see Blake. He can be my assistant. What? Any other questions? All right. Well, if you do have questions, feel free anytime you can message me on Facebook, or you can shoot me an email at deltakayakadventures@gmail.com. And if you're interested in that, the float plan or any of those assessments from the Canoe Association, let me know and I can shoot them over to you. And I look forward to meeting a lot of you, a lot of familiar faces, and a lot of, oh, there's Kathy. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, so good to see you guys. So get out there, keep paddling, and be safe. Have a good night.
Kathy.
That was awesome, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.